Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to Monday, the first Monday of February of 2020. Glad you were able to join us today. I hope you had a great weekend. I know Friday was a little heartfelt there because it was such a down day as we look at Friday. But we're excited to get Dave on the line and see kind of where we go from here and what things are looking like today as the market gets ready to go. Right now it's green and we're happy about that. But hey, if things like Friday get you upset and get you frantic, you need to know how much risk you have in your current portfolio. And to do that, that's why we developed our financial x-ray review. Give us a call and schedule your no obligation financial x-ray, 863-382-0037.
22 before 9, time to check in on your money and see what's going on with the coronavirus. It seems to be determining where our money's going of late. Downtown Sebring, we go to the offices of Statler Financial Services. Phillip Statler standing by. And Phillip, I sure could have used some cheerleading on Friday because, boy, did the market stink on Friday, right?
It really did, Dave. Man, I'm telling you, I leave you for a day and it turns red.
Well, what can I say? Yeah, Dow was down by 603.5 points on Friday. NASDAQ down by 148. Standard & Poor's down by over 58. I mean, the best performer of the three indexes was NASDAQ. It was only down by about 1.5%. It was El Stinko, and about the only thing you can do is rack it up to the coronavirus concerns. The World Health Organization said it was a global health problem. You and I were comparing notes. We haven't heard them use that magic word pandemic yet, which will probably be the ticket to another sell-off, I'd wager.
I'm thinking it probably will be, Dave, and this is going to continue to be in the news until we kind of get an idea of what is it going to take to get under control and stop the spread. That's going to be the key. When that announcement's made, I think then there'll be a sigh of relief here as to what does this really mean? Because I mean, we look now at what's happening in China and how's it affecting us? Well, you look at the casino stocks, you look at the airline stocks, you look at the travel stocks in general. They're all the ones that are taking the brunt, a big brunt of this whole outbreak on the coronavirus.
Yeah, it is not pretty. One little microscopic bug could do what 2 years of tariff wars couldn't do. We're just wrecking both ours and China's market for the short term. Shanghai Stock Exchange was off over 8% at the close early on this morning, prompted the Chinese government to say they were going to pump $173 billion worth of new capital into the economy there in order to float it. Other news that folks might not have caught up with, the first death from the coronavirus off of mainland China happened over the weekend. It was a Chinese national in a hospital in the Philippines, so it still is not heavily on our shore yet, but the first East Coast case of coronavirus reported on our shores has happened. That was up in the Boston area. And by and large, it just is kind of sort of El Stinko. Apple even shut down their operations in China, which is kind of going a piece because they depend so much on China for business, don't they?
Well, they do, and they actually closed 42 of their stores over there, along with I'm sure other things that are affecting them, but mostly the stores and corporate offices they're closing down. And they right now it's scheduled to last until February 9th. And we'll see what happens as we get closer to that date, if that's still the date everybody goes back to work, or if they end up pushing it down a little bit further, depending upon what's happening with this virus.
Yeah, the scary part of the whole mess is our CDC is saying that just the normal flow of work, they're working like a house afire in order to catch up with this virus and develop an antidote or an inoculation for it. But the problem is just the way we do things in the world of big medicine is first they find it, then they test it on critters, then they test it on humans. It might be a full year before we see anything that can actually wipe the coronavirus off the face of the earth. And that's giving us an indication of kind of a rough road in terms of especially internationally and travel affected stocks.
Well, that's true. I mean, things like this, you're right. It takes a while to go through that testing process. Now, I did see a couple headlines Gilead Science is working with the China to really test and try to come up with a treatment for the coronavirus. And of course, they're one of the few. They're getting a pretty big bump this morning. They were
I
about
noted.
4.5% earlier today.
Yeah, I've got them over 5 right now. I was wondering if that was the cause, if they had something as far as an inside track. I hate to say it, but this might be one of those times where our drug makers working with the Chinese might be a really good thing because, well, they don't have quite the consumer protection protocols that we've got here. I hate seeing any two-legged human being used as a guinea pig, but given our regulations, China's in a little bit more of a rush than we are anyway, right?
Well, yeah, definitely. I would think so, because everybody wants to get this thing resolved. Another company that's got their fingers in there a little bit is GlaxoSmithKline. They're
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily working with the Chinese government. They're working with the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation to develop a vaccine. And so I'm sure they're getting a little help with that too.
Probably a pretty safe bet that basically every R&D department in the pharmacology industry is working their buns off on trying to beat the coronavirus right now, right?
I would think so. I would definitely think that everybody's R&D is working on that project.
One would assume. Things on our side of the pond that affect things that don't necessarily relate to the coronavirus is J.C. Penney. You and I have been sounding not necessarily favorable tones toward them for a long time. They've spent a month at under $1 a share, and that doesn't work well with the New York Stock Exchange. They got notice over the weekend that they need to do something or get delisted and become basically what boils down to a penny stock. They've been under $1, and they were notified, and that means they're going down even farther this morning. So other things are looking kind of gray on the horizon for other companies that are household names as well.
Well, yeah, I mean the main thing is those travel stocks. They're just getting beat up, or they got beat up on Friday anyway. You got things like Las Vegas Sands. They were down almost 1.5% on Friday. They're down about another 0.5% today. A lot of the other ones are kind of bouncing back a little bit today. Wynn was down a little bit on Friday. It's bouncing back this morning. And then you got the airline stocks. They all were down somewhere between 2 and almost 4% on Friday. And most of them are making up a little of that this morning. Not a lot, not a lot, but they're at least making back a little bit of it.
Absolutely. We have a tendency in the markets to do a maybe we overreacted day following a big drop like we had on Friday. It looks like we got it today. I don't have a lot of company reports for this morning that I've caught up with. I'd wager you do. Is there anything that's likely to move the market considerably on the domestic side coming up this week on your calendar?
Yeah, Google comes out today after we close.
Okay.
So that'll be a big one. I didn't see, I was scanning through them trying to see if there's what else is really coming out this big name. And I don't see much else coming out big named. Checkpoint Software came out this morning before the market opened. They beat by 3 cents a share. Revenue also beat forecasted. They had a big boost and increase in subscriptions. And so I'm not sure why they're trading down this morning, but they're getting beat up pretty bad. In my report, I just don't see anything. There must be something else in the more detailed report that's catching the eyes of the traders, because
Somebody drilled down on that one somewhere, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, because it's down almost 4% this morning.
Wouch. Yeah, the only one I saw that was kind of an indication, especially given the fact that it relates to food service, is Cisco Systems. They had a beat this past week.
Yeah, and that's good because that shows people are still going to restaurants and eating, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's really, I'm looking forward to tonight. I think Google, that Alphabet, when it comes out, will be a kind of a market setter, kind of, hey, this is how they're doing. They're one that everybody follows, and they're a pretty high price stock.
Understood. The other than that, the expectations should be pretty high. One thing that happened while you were off on Friday is we got the Amazon report, and Amazon just absolutely kicked Boutte when they reported their earnings. You and I were both saying, geez, what happened? Because the retail sales figure overall wasn't bad, but all the brick and mortars were showing something relatively small. Well, Amazon made up the difference. They just absolutely kicked butt and became a $1 trillion company for at least a little while on Friday before everybody sold everything that moved. Setting the table this morning, we had that off day on Friday on the markets. Everything was off. Dow was off by over 2%, NASDAQ by more than 1.5%, and the Standard & Poor's in the middle, off by a little over 1.75%. It was generally El Stinko, and almost all of it was something you could rack up to the coronavirus. We've kind of alluded to it, Philip, 45 minutes before we open, a little bit of green ink on a maybe we overreacted day. Can you give us any good news so far?
Well, you know, it is. I want to look at interest rates real quick before we go that direction. The 10-year Treasury is at 1.54 right now, which is down. It's up from where it closed on Friday, but still down significantly from where we saw it at one point in time. But you're right. Everything else is pretty much coming up green. We've got the Dow up 0.5%. The NASDAQ's up 0.7. The S&P 500 is up 0.6. So everything's looking pretty good there. As we start to open the week, being the first week of February of 2020. We got gold and silver both coming down. Silver is getting beat up pretty big. It's down 1.4% this morning. Gold's down 0.4%. And then we got crude oil down 0.33% to $51.37 a barrel.
We're perfectly happy to take that overseas market. I mentioned the Shanghai market was down by like 8% overnight on mainland China. Hong Kong evidently has a little bit of a mentality of what's bad for China. Mainland is good for Hong Kong. They're up by a little bit this morning. Japan ended up selling off considerably at the close. They were down by over 1%. Europe is kind of doing what we're doing, recovering by a little bit after a major sell-off on Friday. Phillip, all of this instability ought to really make somebody who's going to be retiring over the next year or so kind of sit up and take notice. Stability counts for a lot during volatile times. How do I find you to find that stability in my retirement fund?
Dave, they can call us right now at 863-382-0037 and ask for our financial x-ray, where we'll determine how much risk you have in your current portfolio and then do some cost analysis to tell you what it's costing you to hold what you're holding. To do that, like I said, give us a call at 863-382-0037. Join us online at our website, statlerfinancial.com, and then join us every weekend for the Statler Financial Radio Show, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Sunday mornings on News Talk 730 a.m.
And back again here tomorrow on Light FM. Phillip, thank you so much. We'll catch you then, all right?
All right, you have a great day, Dave. I'm looking forward to it.
Appreciate it. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services. Phillip Statler.
Folks, again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Hey, China's going to be in the news for a while. This coronavirus is going to be in the news for a while. But if you're not sure what all this volatility is going to do to your portfolio, like I said, give us a call at 863-382-0037. You need to know how much risk you have in your portfolio. Do it right now. Have a great day. I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow.